This conference will now be recorded.
Did my job.
Still working.
Yes, said it's now recorded. Yep, all set. Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
I took care of it.
Time is now 6:03, and I'm going to call to order the Tilton Planning Board meeting for Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. And the first on the agenda, the lot merger, and they're not here, are they? Oh,
Yellow folder, it's just a lot marker.
okay.
Not even
We have two lot mergers.
one lot marker, 2 lots.
Okay.
Microphone.
All the mics on?
Yeah, it's red is on.
And now I think they're all on. The lot merger is for tax. It's for E. Anderson and Sons Holding at 315 Laconia Road in Tilton.
I can give you just a quick little background on that if you're interested. This is the gentleman that came before the board for a shed.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
didn't have a primary structure and went to zoning. And the resolution was, since he didn't have a primary structure, that he asked if he merged because he owns both those lots. So he has the ability to merge 2 lots if he is the owner of both lots, which he is. So he's decided he would merge those 2 lots. So it's a pretty straightforward lot merger of those. That's where E. Anderson Cars is, and that barbecue pit
Mm-hmm.
place that he wanted to put the shed.
Yeah.
You know, right across from U-Haul, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. You know where
If you
it is,
remember.
Evergreen.
Okay.
Everybody aware of where those are? Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the merger of, at 315 Laconia Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Wasn't there?
Another merger,
Yeah.
In that same property?
previous.
Okay.
Any discussion on it at all?
Would. Oh, okay, so what would it says that it would be designated as a different tax map number? What would that be? And
I
lot
don't know, she
number?
has my paperwork. We can designate it as the lot, the main lot. It probably designated as 315 would be lot R2146 for our map purposes when it goes to the registry.
Would it make sense to update this document to include the property addresses as well as the tax map and lot info, as well as what like the new or primary address would be?
Yeah, sure. We can do that.
I think, by the way, it's appropriate to say thank you for your letter. I think a lot of those things we'll take under advisement, but right now we're really under the crunch to get the zoning ordinances up, and people want to do the master plan. So we'll put those on hold. But I do appreciate the time you took on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. We have a
I'm just concerned because we're saying document, but we don't have the tax map and lot number that we're
we
signing
have
that we're
we
converting
have
it to.
tax map R21
On the
lot
document
46.
right here, it says that this is what we're doing, and we're assigning a lot number and tax map to it. And the chairman's signing that, but it's blank.
And we can write in R2146. It's going to be 315
You want to put
Laconia
that in
Road.
there?
Yeah.
Was it?
Sure.
What number?
R21 lot 46, 315 Laconia Road.
26 or 46?
46.
46. I have that on this that I'm going to sign.
Oh,
Oh, it's on yours.
no, because it's right here. So this.
Oh, okay. All
right
right.
there.
So you said to put just lot 46 and map 21, all right. Any other discussion?
It-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so done. This is a what? Okay, Leanne. All right, the next is a change of use. Samantra LLC / Gilbert Construction. Anyone here for that?
That's Marcus and Gilbert Construction. They are looking to put an apartment above Casamigos, a 1-bedroom apartment.
They have the parking
They-
behind the building, correct?
They have parking,
Yes,
yes,
I do.
Okay, that's,
so that's not an issue for them. Yeah, I think he put it here, owner owns 10 parking spots behind the building.
How many of those taken up by other people for that? I mean, are there other apartments there?
He owns them, this gentleman.
Yes. Are
Yeah.
there other apartments in that building?
No, Casamigo, it's just Casamigo.
So it's just the one?
Yeah.
And they have sufficient for their employees, because I know that's a requirement presently.
Oh, in terms of parking spaces.
So, now he owns the whole building?
Not Marcus. Marcus is the builder. Sunmatra LLC owns the building.
And Gilbert Construction, who's going to be doing the work.
Well,
Correct.
I was wondering, the building occupies more than one business?
Yeah, the vape shop, I think, is the heart half of the
Mhm.
business.
So what the concern is how many employees does that business have? How many employees does all the businesses total have? Because they have to have parking for that as well as for, I think it's what, 2 for an apartment?
Correct.
So does that total out?
I don't know how many employees they have.
Parking's real big back there for an issue with,
should we accept the application as complete
oh,
before entering discussion?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I propose a motion to accept the application as complete.
Well, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
so
It says here that the owner owns 10 plus parking spots behind the building. All right, now,
So,
if you want to make,
no, I have a question.
yeah.
Do we have a letter allowing, I don't know who owns
The owner signed the application.
the owner.
The
did.
application's signed, okay?
Okay. Oh, I see it right here. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Make a motion to accept the application as complete.
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Let's see. Mhm. Has the fire department been out there, do you know?
This is not built yet.
Okay.
The question would be, I realize that the owner owns 10 plus parking spots behind the building, but how many of those are used up by his other units?
Well, I don't think there are any other, there's no, in that building, there are no apartments.
Okay.
And I don't believe there are any apartments in the vape shop either.
No,
So,
it's one building. There's no second floor.
yes, so what I'm asking, those have businesses
Mm-hmm.
that are presently taking up some of those parking spaces, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have a certain number of parking spaces for a business based on your employees.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have two businesses and they're taking up X number of spaces, then you don't have the spaces for the apartments.
So we need to find out before we would approve it. We need to know the number of employees. We can
For a
find that
lot
out,
plan
John.
for the
That's not
parking.
an issue.
Make sure that that's one of the biggest problems right now downtown is that we have apartments that don't have parking spaces that are pre-existing.
Well, it's not going to be open 24 hours, number one. And do you know if the apartment's being built for the owner?
You mean for the owner to live in?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I don't know. I know it's a 1-bedroom apartment they're looking to put up there and rent. I'm not sure to who.
Do we have any indication that the abutters have been notified?
This is a change of use. We didn't notify the abutters.
Any questions other than number of employees?
Yeah, if I'm reading this right here, it says 3 foot of floor joist run onto roof of existing building. So I guess, is that overhanging Main Street or the sidewalk, or is that,
I think that's is that in the rear?
I don't know, because I don't know from this diagram, which is front, backwards, sideways, left ways, right ways. I don't know.
I mean, you can table this for the applicant to be present to answer these questions. I don't represent the applicant, so if you have questions,
I think that's what we should do because we don't know how many employees, and I can't really make heads or tails out of some of the things on here.
So I agree that we should have the applicant come in. But I believe building number 200 through 206 is the building in question, and I think they stated they're planning to build it on top of the storage at the back, and so I believe it's that square, the larger of the two squares that comes off the back, and so I think that just means that the floor joists will run onto the top of the building
Yeah.
from the storage, and so maybe that's from like a
You're right.
structural support standpoint in terms of tying it into the framing of the existing building.
But you can't say that for 100% certainty because you are not the applicant nor are you representing
Yeah.
the applicant.
Correct. Yeah, that's just my interpretation, but the
Exterior cupboards.
bedroom does seem to exceed the legal minimums in terms of size.
Christine's online. Just
Hi, Christine.
Hi, Jay.
I can't, with some of this, is not readable too, so,
I think it's the Xeroxing.
Yeah, I
thing
think
comes
you're right.
through super clear.
all right, well, I'll make a motion for us to continue this until our next meeting when the owner can be present to answer questions. And I don't know whether the owner, we may need a construction person as well. Leanne, I would suggest that maybe we want both here.
I'll let him know.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think a lot plan with parking spaces can have that.
Is there a second to my,
I'll second that. Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
okay. All right.
If the board would allow, before we get into the zoning, I have one more quick change of use that came in. This should be much simpler than this previous one. I know you don't have it. It is for Concord Orthopedic. They are in the, you saw an application from a William Joseph recently to expand parking of 614 Laconia Road. It is down next to Sanborn Road where the V comes. It's that strip mall with his therapy now. You allowed the expansion of the parking area just about a month ago. I think it was last month, if you
Okay.
recall.
Yeah.
I believe it was probably because we didn't know it at the time, but that building has now been sold to Concord Hospital, Concord Orthopedic. And the therapy units will stay. There's a few therapy in there already, and they're going to take over the right side of the building, which they said used to be a church. Does
Yes.
that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so the Concord Orthopedic are taking over that area for appointments for Concord Orthopedic. So I have their change of use.
Oh.
And,
Know where it is.
Yeah.
I know.
and again, they obviously have a site
by the
plan
senior center.
because we just did their site plan
Yeah.
with the parking expansion. So that's why I think this should be somewhat minor, but I'll leave it. I have the copies.
Yeah, I had heard, I had understood that they were taking that over, so.
They didn't know they needed a change of use.
How is it a change of
It's
use?
my
It
understanding
was a
that,
church.
And now it's going to be a medical office of some sort.
Mhm.
it's my understanding they're not going to be in there for a couple of years. They've got a lease up in Meredith now.
They're going to be in there.
Oh,
They can get this approved and get.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If I
oh,
go to
you guess,
physical
I guess you
therapy,
can't believe what you
I
read in the
pray.
papers.
I believe they're leaving.
If I go to physical therapy, I pray.
What?
I believe they're leaving.
Please
I think it'd be nice to have them here in Tilton. You won't have to go far.
I know.
Well, they have physical therapy. What are they going to do?
That's not Concord Ortho's physical therapy though. That's a different,
I know it's
Organization.
Capella.
Yeah, that's Coppola Physical
Mhm.
Therapy.
they're very good.
So this is the same thing they had brought to us before, except this is the change of use. You know what that?
Nope. Well, Joseph William, I'm not sure how he owned the building at the time. He just said he wanted to expand parking when he brought it to you, which you approved, which is fine. We didn't know that it was then being sold. So he's now sold the whole property, Mr. Joseph, and Concord Orthopedic is who bought it. And now they want to occupy the space. So that's.
So there's
That's all I have.
Is the current physical therapy staying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're only doing the right, I believe, the right half of the building.
Wasn't at one time, wasn't that whole building medical?
I haven't been,
No,
lived in
it
this
was,
town.
Snowmobile club.
Snowmobile Club
Yeah, but
for a
I
long time. I never knew it to all be medical.
swear that was medical at one time.
No,
It was-
not in my lifetime. That's a long time.
I'm not going down that road.
You better not. And it says the signage is similar to the current church, that was a church sign. They're just gonna put Concord Ortho.
Well, they'll have to get a permit for a new sign regardless of what they put up, and they'll have to meet the requirements of the ordinance.
And they're gonna relocate the exterior doors.
Yeah, there's no change to the exterior footprint. It's just interior change from church to now doctor's office
Doctor's
with the
office.
additional parking, which they meet the parking
I'll
requirements.
entertain a motion.
The parking that we got before and with that additional part.
Correct.
That's the site plan.
If you think
I
about
would-
it, he's what he was doing.
I would like to make a motion to accept the application as complete.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 I don't think we need anything else. I think everything is complete. It's all set to go.
Yep.
Okay?
I have my original, so you're good.
Oh, you have the original. I'll just put this back in here though. Yeah.
Are you going to make a motion to approve it? Or I know you said it complete, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done.
All right.
Goodness.
All right. Now, I think we have, I thought I saw, oh yeah, deadlines. Does everybody have a copy of the deadlines? And this,
Chuck Mitchell has his hand raised.
Hmm?
Chuck Mitchell has his
Copy of
hand
the
raised.
deadlines.
Deadlines.
Yes, we do.
who has his hands up?
Chuck Mitchell does online.
Oh, Chuck. Chuck,
Yes. I was going to comment on the Concord Orthopedic. That process has been undergoing for a long period of time. I do get physical therapy there at Coppola, and my therapist is Eric Marshall, who happens to be the manager of the facility. And Coppola actually owns 50% of the building. Concord Orthopedic owns the other half of the building. They're already under construction, and they hope to open in January, which was in the sun today.
okay, thank you. All right, that answers that question. You have in front of you a set of deadlines. And this is why I had said to you earlier, Nate, that we are under the crunch to get these zoning ordinances worked on. So
I don't think I
What the
have.
heck is going on here?
Oh, looks like you're bleeding.
Uh,
and Leanne has worked up on some zoning.
I put together a list of proposed zoning amendments that I think need to be addressed. I think it's a little aggressive, and there are quite a few of them, and I don't know that we'll get to all of them. So possibly I'm looking at the board to decide if they agree on any of these amendments that need to be made, and maybe we can prioritize them and decide how we're going to get them drafted for the public hearing, and if you want to move forward with them. So these are the ones I have come up with based on input from zoning board and things we've bumped up against in our office, and obviously the planning board can come up with their own list of zoning proposals as well, but this is a starting point as a working document.
All right,
Does
let's
everybody have the list? I have extra copies of the list if anyone needs it. Everyone has the list of amendments? I assume that's a yes.
Oh,
Let's look over them briefly tonight. And when we meet next time, we can go through.
if we could get what the proposed changes are, because it says correct zones, but, and then that way I can do homework or something on it.
Right, I'm just saying these need, okay, so here's, we can go through them as I understand them and why I put these. And again, the planning board can make their own list. I'm just putting these down. So the zoning, the solar ordinance, which I believe was put forward a couple years ago, was a solar ordinance from another town. And so on the back page, I think I put it, might be page 74, it lists districts, zoning districts or zones that we don't even have because they're in that other town that we copied the ordinance from. So we just need to take them out.
Yeah, I drafted
Right.
that.
I was
Right.
gonna say,
So what-
John, you
yeah,
were the one that
And
drafted
it was from the state information.
Right.
So,
So, yeah, we just need to correct. I mean, that's a
Correct
pretty
it
simple
and-
one.
and
Now we
ta-
just need to get the zones out that we don't
Correct
have.
it and tailor it to Tilton.
Right. Just take the zones out that don't apply to Tilton is basically all it's saying. There's some zones in there that we don't even have. They belong to the other town that it was modeled after. So that's a pretty easy, just, that's more of a correction.
Yeah.
Everybody good on that one to move
Mhm.
ahead? All right, the next one is in the definitions. We have a definition for manufacturing. We don't have a definition for small scale manufacturing, although we have it as a list on the permitted uses. We have a list of what is heavy industrial and light. We need to clarify our definitions of manufacturing, light manufacturing, small scale manufacturing for definitions so that we know what category things fall into.
Okay.
And maybe what's the difference between small scale manufacturing and light industrial? Is there a difference? Because in some places you're allowed to do small scale manufacturing, but not light industrial. But when you read the definition of industrial, it's very confusing. So you can look
So
at
it's really
those.
the definitions we need to work on.
These are the definitions of manufacturing and industrial, light and heavy and small scale. And so third, we ready?
Yeah.
Third is table of permitted uses. Under the table of permitted uses, there's a category that says conversion of an existing residential structure to multi-dwelling units. That's all it says. And it's allowed in the village district, for example, but the village district doesn't allow multifamily. So
I was just gonna say. Yep.
given that, this is saying even though multifamily is not allowed in the village district, this is my interpretation, that if you have an existing residential structure, you can convert it to a multifamily, correct? But how many units can you have? And I did some research. I mean, so I can put 5 units, I can put 10 units, just as you can convert it to multifamily. So in going back over the ordinances, I found that at one time when this first was put in, it had in parentheses 4-unit maximum, which probably was the intent of this addition, since downtown's the only district that has 4 is the maximum in any district right now in Tilton. So I would think that that should have stayed, and somehow without an amendment, it got dropped in the ordinance book, whether it was through a retyping, I have no idea, long before my time. So now it just says, it doesn't say 4-unit maximum, it just says can be converted into multifamily dwelling. So I'm proposing either you put 4-unit maximum back in or not, or whatever you decide you want to put as an amendment, but I think it needs to be addressed because, you know, people are going to come and say, well, it doesn't say 4 max. So it's just ambiguous to me as the enforcer to know how this is applied.
So I would like to point out that at 5 units, you are considered commercial as a residential property, and you then require the building to be
I
sprinklered.
was just gonna
Right.
say that's.
So
yeah,
Four is the
as-
number.
As far as a house hack, you can't really go beyond that when converting a single family to a multifamily.
Right. But it doesn't really say single family either. It just says a residential dwelling. So again, it's very vague on numbers and what's allowed.
That they convert
To 3,
duplex
3 to
or
4,
drive.
I was gonna say it.
4 to 5. I mean, I just think it needs some tweaking on that so that we're clear.
Mhm.
That's again, these are just my
No, I think
ideas.
you're right because of the point that Nate brought up.
Yeah, so I did notice reading through the zoning that we have some definitions that are non-standard with industry terminology and the rest of the state. And then some things, we do specify our own version, and some things we don't. So there's a lot of places like that. Because I did notice that you couldn't build a new 4-unit in most districts, but per the chart, everywhere, like I believe even industrial, you could convert existing to a 4-unit multifamily. So there is some lack of cohesion and clarity, I guess.
Okay. Number 4 is in the table of permitted uses. We allow, I believe it's in the rural district, non-commercial raising or keeping of livestock is allowed in the rural agricultural district, but fowl and chickens are not considered livestock by definition of UNH Cooperative Extension. So we don't have any allowance for chickens. So I was looking to add non-commercial raising or keeping of fowl as well, only you can add it anywhere you want, but again, it's just a recommendation to add fowl and the allowance in districts. Maybe you want to allow it in residential.
I wonder
You might
why
want to
that
put a
was-
number up to 6 or not. We've talked about this before on chickens. Some people don't believe we need to regulate it all, just let everybody have them. But you've got some pretty small neighborhoods that it becomes a nuisance and it ends up in our lap. So again, just a suggestion, and we do call out non-commercial raising and keeping of livestock. So if you can take a look at that.
I have a question.
Yep.
Non-commercial raising so if I had 6 chickens and I sold the eggs, does that mean
You can't sell the eggs.
You can sell anything that you grow
I'm growing the
without a
chickens?
permit.
I'm growing the chickens.
You're growing eggs
Eggs are sold all over town.
all over town.
Again, that's fine. It's your ordinance. Yep, it's fine. All right, so that's what that's about. We can do it or not do it. Next is table of permitted uses. This came up as a result of a recent variance with sales, rentals of boats, watercraft, including repair and services allowed in the mixed use and regional commercial. Recreational vehicles and campers, including, I mistyped that, repair service is also allowed. And motor vehicle repair is only allowed in these districts. So there's some inconsistencies with these repairs that may or may not involve oil. And this was something the zoning board wanted the planning board to look at to be more consistent with the different type of repair facilities. So I have no recommendation either way. It's just that the zoning board wanted the planning board to take a look at that.
I don't think service on watercraft net is allowed in a mixed use in the table.
I believe it is, but again, I will look again.
I have to look it up.
I
I have it right here.
So let's look at that carefully and then we'll discuss that one.
I have it
We
right
can
here.
make sure that we have it
It's under,
correct.
it's allowed, by special exception. So it's an allowed use by special exception.
So it's not allowed unless you get special.
Well, I have it right here. I have it in parentheses, allowed with the S, see the quotes, S by special
Oh, yeah,
exception
I see that.
in mixed use and regional commercial. So number 6 is the excavation regulation. which I think we've been through as well, with the special permit for excavation. I think we need some more defined requirements for that special permit that the zoning board issues. They did hear quite a few applications. Mr. Bernard was one. We had Honda, and not Honda, but the Preserve, dialysis, they all came. But there's really not a lot of information on what they're required. And I think that ordinance could use some beefing up and make some stricter requirements for what they're allowed to do with loom and where it can go and how much. If you're going to have them do a special permit, I think it should have some requirements, and there should be a special permit form possibly as well. So I'd like more clarification on that.
Now they
Can we
just,
set a minimum in terms of, just because if I have landscapers and I'm putting a wall in or something and they take, half a pickup truck of topsoil off the
Commercial,
property.
it's commercial, not residential.
Okay, all right.
residential. Okay.
The next one is the certificate of occupancy article, which we also came up against this year, which we've been talking about quite a bit, with requiring a new site plan with all those COs. And I think we've had some discussion on this board, what requires a new site plan for existing and grandfather, and if they're changing a use, are we going to make new site plans?
We do require a new site plan. I've
Correct.
submitted a site plan, yeah.
Correct. So do we want to leave that as is written, or I know there was some discussion at the board level here on understanding that requirement. I think Nate had brought up a couple of questions on it, and
I think at the
I don't think this had ever been enforced in the past. So this is all new, requiring anyone to.
Well, it's been since we had a big issue with it back in 1999, and that's when,
Right.
everything was corrected. It just hasn't been.
Well, I don't think any
Properly
new site
enforced.
plans have been done because there's a million properties in town that have changed ownership every time it sells. You don't have site plans. So obviously, I mean, I don't see where any new site plans have been done for any pre-existing properties with change of, this says if a property sells, if a property.
Commercial.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Commercial, obviously. Yeah. Planning board doesn't do residential.
And
So
the idea of that back then was that a lot of these commercial properties and that we didn't have site plans and that on file. So
we still
wanted to make sure
don't.
we had,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
So this, what it does is puts that in there, and that was the reason for it.
I understand that. I'm just saying now, every time, so for example, I have another besides Sunmacha, which that was kind of easy because they're looking to add apartments, which come to the board. But I have tenant fit ups downtown. I have another one coming that will come to you now. They want to move into the, where the smoothie place was. And so a new tenant wants to go in there. There's no site plan or any of those downtown buildings. So they are all going to have to do new site plans before any of those tenants change, which again is fine, but that's holding up a lot of
I think
leases downtown.
Well, we did have in that place where there's smoothies, we've had site plans, and also the place on the,
Well, some have them, like Sunmacha had one because it's in the,
well,
it's
they
in the
should have
file.
one where the smoothie place was too. That's where there was a tattoo parlor, wasn't
either that or the one right
it? And
next
we
door.
had, and we had,
Those ice cream, there was like two.
we had site plans for those. I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah.
The
Well,
first two right here.
Well, look, but I'm just saying that we want to continue with this. I'm just saying, let's take a look at it. If you don't want to look at it, you can just cross it off.
Okay.
I'm just bringing forward what I have.
I would say at the very least, we need to fix some of just the wording and some of like the punctuation in the clause at the very least. And then, it hasn't been updated since 99. So it's probably worth doing it. I mean, I was.
Yeah. And it can be, I think, worded much more sparsely than it is here. It's pretty wordy.
Yeah, yeah.
The next one is Mixed Use 2 District, which is why Mr. Bernard's here. We have a mixed use district that was voted in this town by petition warrant article in 2005. Am I right? My head's a little fuzzy today. Been doing a lot of different things. 2005, but there's no property in it, which is, I say either you should amend the ordinance and take the district out, or put some property in it, or decide what you want to do with that. But it's odd to have a district with no property in it in your ordinance. So Mr. Bernard is looking to do something with his property in a mixed use capacity. So I think he has a couple things. I know he's spoken to the selectmen about this, right? Selectmen he spoke to. Right. And yep, I just want to tell the board one thing before you speak, John, and that is, so John does have some ideas of a mixed use district for his property, which he wants to talk to you about. But we also, even if you did support it, we have got to define the district. It's very broadly defined as like 3 lines in the ordinance now, that it just allows for a mix of uses, but there's no density requirement, there's no acreage requirement, there's no parameters in it. It's just there. So this is an opportunity, if we want to move forward with this type of development, that, John has some ideas, and so I will have back to the chair.
Okay, John, if you will let us go through the rest of these and then come back to you.
Okay, there's only 2 left.
Yeah.
That I have. The next one is another thing that's come up is short-term rentals. This has been an issue throughout the state for Airbnbs and how we want to handle it. I know Laconia just went through an extensive ordinance for permitting Airbnbs and how it's handled, whether they get a permit that's a year long and they renew it. I think that's how they do it. Whether we want to allow them, not allow them, but it's come up quite a bit lately.
They do exist already.
Airbnbs do exist
Yeah.
everywhere, right? But we don't have an ordinance to address.
Saying, but I'm saying it's not that they don't exist. They do, and I think it's definitely time that we start addressing it.
Right, right. And we can address it as they're all commercial properties, but we have to find them, and doing them as site plans is going to be, I think, a difficult way to approach Airbnbs personally. I think you're better off having an ordinance that has them come in and you can have them submit a permit that's good for a year, and you review it and have fire and code review it, and they get signed off, and similar to kind of how you started your change of use form. I don't know. We can look into it more, but I'm just saying that it's something that's going to have to be addressed.
So I would like to note that even, single family homes are used as, short-term rentals. So I would not qualify it as a commercial issue specifically.
Well, I think that's the argument, is that I know someone on one of the boards said if a person is renting it as short-term rental, then it's a business, and if it's a business, it's a commercial property, and therefore it needs a site plan. And that's the approach of one opinion from a board member. So I'm just saying to the planning board, which does set the ordinances, that maybe we define how these are going to be handled by.
Which is why I think Laconia became so long-term, because they got involved in all of that. So I think it's important that we set the parameters right now.
Right, and I used the wrong term. I said Airbnb, which is just an acronym for short-term rental. They're not all Airbnbs. Could be any type of short-term rental.
We would then be turning any single family on the waterfront that is rented, for any period less than assumably a year, as a commercial entity, and we'd be then requiring, site plans and stuff like that.
And every time they sell those cottages, they would come back here for a new site plan. So
they'd need a new site plan every time a new tenant came in.
I don't know. That's why you need an ordinance.
That's why that would depend on what we what consensus we came to. Now, it
Well,
wouldn't have to be that way.
Yeah,
per the certificate of occupancy, if the occupant changes, they need to come before and have an updated site plan, or there may be no
Yeah.
updates.
if it's
Right.
commercial. Yeah.
Well, and the other problem is we're not even aware of them because, I mean, I don't know what cottage is down. I'm not
I
right.
only knew
So
that.
not regulated to the waterfront. It could be anywhere in town.
Correct.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're more common, in vacation spots.
Well, we're a vacation area.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
exactly.
that's the problem.
So
Well, I mean,
I
any
read
of
it.
you
I read
could do
about
a
it on
short-term.
Facebook about how many there were around. John.
So the issue is that a single neighborhood, residential neighborhood had going on in just transient people coming in and out of neighborhoods for, a couple days or that in a single house. So I think the issue was more of the zones that it's allowed in as opposed to where.
I think what it came up the first time for me was there was I'm going to say cottage down in the water district, whether it's on the water or not, that was in more or less unsafe code condition and was being rented as an Airbnb or whatever short-term rental. And we received a complaint that ended up going through our health office because they were saying, there were electrical wires exposed. Because there's no permitting for these short-term rentals, that we make sure that the rentals aren't safe because we don't know about them. And then they said, well, why is this place being rented short-term? It should be reviewed as a commercial piece. And that's how so that we can get in there and get fire in there to inspect and get code in there. And so that's how it came up the first time. Since then, I've received other complaints from people saying, my neighbor's renting short term. What is our ordinance for Airbnb or short term rentals? And again, it's an issue because we don't have a hard, fast ordinance on that. As again, many towns in New Hampshire are grappling with this and trying to come up with the best way, because I think they don't want to say no short term rentals in areas that are the Lakes region, which was a vacation area. So
I know there were some problems. I think north on Route 3 up towards Winnisquam. I mean, where the Mosquito Bridge. There were.
yeah, down on Hill Road.
Yeah, there were a lot of those being rented that way.
Yeah, and I know that Meredith Jeannie has mentioned that they've had the same problem in Meredith. They're trying to come up
Conway
with an
has
ordinance.
an issue.
Yep.
Lincoln.
Yep.
Waterville Valley. Vincent Lake.
Thornton.
I mean,
Thornton.
Well, it's a big problem in Thornton.
Yep.
I think it's been going on for a long time, but all of a sudden the term Airbnb has come up, and that's where
true.
I noticed on Facebook they were talking about places in Northfield that were Airbnb. So I know it's being done.
Well, there's
in the area.
VRBO, Airbnb. There's
So if something is being used as a rental unit, that I don't know if we have to have the housing standards, has to be registered as a rental unit, because I think we do that now, right? Landlords have to,
only multifamily properties.
well, all landlords have to register according to the, even single family, going to our.
Right, but it's how do you enforce that? How do you know that the problem with the Airbnbs is how do you know that they're renting down there?
Well, I just, any rental unit in the town, they're required to register it, and then they're supposed to go through the housing standards inspection. So we probably have to qualify that a little more into it.
So I
Well,
do
that's
know
a
that
whole different group, the housing standards.
But that's not just
It-
short term. That's any rental you're talking.
Any rental, so
Yeah.
that could be applied, including
Yes,
short term.
Could be.
And then that way, the fire department and health inspector would have to go in there in order to certify it before they could be used as short-term rental. So it gives safety in that.
yeah, but that's a once a year thing.
Hmm.
Where you go in and inspect a property, but if someone owns a property, they may never set foot in Tilton, and they just have a management company, take care of getting the people in and out, and we'll never know.
Exactly.
We'll never know.
So they report them.
So I know New York City recently implemented an Airbnb short-term rental ban and registry, and they, were limiting the, number of apartment units that could be qualified as short-term rental. And they've essentially had almost zero compliance because people just go from Airbnb, which is being abandoned as one of those platforms due to fees and how it operates. And so now people are going to Vrbo, Facebook Marketplace, all of these other online arenas where you can advertise these types of things. So it's
Well, we've had them for years because we are the Lakes region, and people have, rented out places in the resort area for
Hundreds of years.
hundreds. Yeah.
And
in
you've
the
never
wintertime,
made them do site plans?
No.
I don't think they even had a town hall back when they started doing this.
Well, I know, but they've been doing
18
it
years.
longer than I've been here, but now, now you're requiring site plans for all those properties, so,
Well,
Yeah.
site plans for commercial, right?
well, any short-term rentals are commercial is by your definition. That's
Yeah,
the issue. There's,
Yeah, but what,
Is it?
I don't know,
it's gonna
that was how it
hard
was.
though, because what are you gonna do? You're gonna have, if there's 30 houses in town, we're gonna all of a sudden be inundated with 30 site plan
I
reviews?
agree 100%, Eric, but this is what was told to me by a member of a
You
board,
better start
so.
meeting every week then.
Yeah.
Clear your calendars.
That's why we need to look these things over very carefully.
Short-term
Think
rental?
about what.
How long do we have to get these done?
Oh,
To have
which
these
one?
done?
It's not considered commercial. You can actually, if you read the regulations on rentals, if you have less than 4 units, you can actually discriminate once you get.
John,
45.
this is planning board, not audience right now.
Okay, and again, I'm not signing up that I agree with this. This is what I was directed by a member of a board, that's what how I had to address short-term rental was as commercial because it's running as a business. So I'm just trying to get clarification from the planning board of how we're going to address Airbnbs. And again, I don't think this is unique to us, but it's got to be, and the Board of Selectmen were the ones that addressed this with me, and that's what I was told. So I'm bringing it back to the planning board for direction.
this is a thing that's always occurred, but the internet and social media has just exacerbated the problem. It used to be, 100 people know John who's got a cabin down by the lake, and now it's anyone in the tri-state area can find out that John has a cabin by the lake.
And again, I think there are a couple towns that have done a pretty good job of coming up with an ordinance that can meet this need, but it will take some time to get that written
Yeah.
and see if it's something we want to manage, or we just, you just decide how you
But
want to approach it.
we have to do it at some point. Do we
Right.
need to do it right now? I guess that's the
Well,
question.
So we have
Do we
till
have the
February
time?
6th.
Well, the first public hearing, I don't have it in front of me. Doesn't the first public hearing by January something, John, do you have that?
Yeah,
January 20.
Thursday, January 11th.
First public hearing,
Last day to post and publish notice for first hearing.
right? So you have to have it written to post it.
Yeah.
And then the last day for the second public hearing, I believe, is February. Is that right, John? Or
Yeah,
I
so
don't have it in front of me.
The first public hearing, January 22nd.
Yeah.
Post file notice option. Last day is February 5th.
Yeah, my birthday.
You
So
know where
mark
you're going to
that.
be.
What day was
Um,
that?
February 5th,
February 5th.
Monday, 2024 on adoption. So that's it.
And then it has to go to the
And
town
then
clerk for the
February
ballot.
26th is the final
Yeah.
proposal. Official copy needs to be placed on file.
Yeah.
This is your sheet.
Well, a little bit.
Bigger, enter it.
No, I'm just writing Jane Allen.
So that's why I think we need to come up, there isn't a ton of time, come up with a priority on these
Yeah.
and maybe identify if there are some that you don't think we can get done properly for March, that we tag them and say this is more of a longer term goal that, we look at over the next year. And how do you want to do it? Do you want to write them? Do you want to see if we can get someone to help us write them? Do we want to get them from other towns?
Well, I think the Airbnb, we definitely have some towns around that have spent a lot of time working on them. might be helpful to us.
Yep, you can use that. I mean, however the board wants to
And
get these written.
we could get some input. We need like a workshop type
Yeah.
thing set up for, and have like the health officer come in, because that was, I believe, who had the issue with going in there inspecting, or anybody else.
And we don't have a health
Sure.
officer right now, but
Still do.
we still do?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's not what I got. I got an email said we didn't. Oh, good. Oh, good. We still have a health officer.
All right, and the last one was tiny houses.
Yeah, and the last one is tiny houses. This has been in the legislature and they passed regulations on tiny houses. And a lot of towns are looking to form an ordinance to address tiny houses because they're here.
Do we allow them now?
We don't have it anywhere. It's not in the ordinance. So
Do our
we don't have a
present zoning-
definition for it. We don't have,
But do our present zoning and building permits allow for houses under a certain size? I think we have
Nope.
special,
Oh, ADUs.
nope.
we have sizes for bedrooms. We have sizes for windows.
Right.
But we don't
Don't have-
have like a minimum, like you can meet all the
650
requirements
650
under
is the
1,000 square
minimum
feet.
square footage that our ordinance allows for a dwelling,
And I believe
except for a manufactured home, which is less per our definition, and tiny homes are allowed for 400, I think, by definition, by the state. So the state is looking at this and saying towns are going to have to allow this because of a housing shortage. So I'm saying we need to address it.
so
The state's mandating.
presently we have a minimum bedroom size.
Nope, and minimum square footage too.
In town, we don't.
Yep, 650. Minimum square footage of a dwelling unit, not a bedroom.
Thought we had a bedroom had to be like 10 by 10.
Yeah, that might be by code.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A bedroom has to be 10 feet by 6 feet minimum.
right. But the tiny homes have their own
Mm.
requirements, and
Yeah.
like a manufactured home is less than 650, but are allowed because they're manufacturing.
Yeah, so tiny homes are a new class of home because they are not manufactured homes, mobile homes, often, and in line with this, obviously, the state has set standards, so
I was just going to say the state has standards, I would assume.
so we need to adopt those and or exceed
And allow them only
those
in districts. You can allow them in parks. There's tiny home
Or
parks.
just totally not allow them.
Or totally not allow them, but I'm not sure you can do that.
So
I will have to do a little more research. I believe the state is saying you can't completely say they're not allowed, but you can restrict them to certain areas or limit where they can be. I'll try and look up more on the legislation. I know it just passed, and I got a bunch of information on the plan link about it in towns. I think Dover just passed a tiny house ordinance, and there's some other districts that are being a little proactive and trying getting an ordinance on it. I can try and get you some information again. This is all really time consuming to do
Once
this
the
research.
state has a regulation on it, we can't say no.
We can make ours tighter.
You can, and that's why, but you have to have an ordinance that says it. Yeah.
So I would like to note that Dover did just have a successful
Correct.
development implemented. I believe it's
Tiny
called
homes.
the cottages,
Yep.
and it was a workforce housing solution. And obviously it's something we need to do because the state has implemented regulations. But I think we should not be anti tiny home. It is it is a more cost effective way to house large numbers of people. It caters typically to studio or single bedroom designs, which cater to typically non families. So by increasing this type of housing, it's unlikely to
Burden the
lead to
school
an
systems.
yeah, it's unlikely to drive up costs in other areas that we would see if we saw 20 3 or 4 bedroom homes built.
Right, and you need sewer system, are they gonna have, a lot of them don't have, it's like a mobile home, and some, they're RVs, they're considered recreational vehicle category. Some of them are on chassis, some of them are not on chassis. There's extensive information about it, you could read the next month about tiny homes, what the state's done, what they're requiring of towns.
Yeah,
So
'cause you
you
can-
might want to do a little research before the next meeting and come up with a different, what you want to do. Again, they're your ordinances.
All right,
I have
so-
one last question before we let John talk, and this might be kind of a stupid question, but in the table of dimensional values, downtown, and it's just a question for the board, there is no minimum lot size in our table of dimensional values and no setbacks. And I'm just curious, I understand the downtown is pretty much completely developed and everything's grandfathered, but I don't really sure I understand why there are no requirements. So I guess I just need the little history on that so I understand if something comes.
So new construction.
Yeah, if someone was to tear something down and build something bigger, there's no requirement for acreage, there's no requirement for setback. Is that correct? And I don't really understand why.
like if the individual who took their parking spaces back, they could put a building there if they wanted. That doesn't have to be parking. Obviously, that would not help them with the other
I'm just
projects they're
curious
working
how it
on.
has nothing there. I don't really, and I don't think I ever really noticed it because we haven't had any new construction, so I probably have never referenced it for anything until recently. I did have a question that someone's looking to build downtown, and they asked me what the requirements were, and it just says NA. So I'm more just
Personally,
baffled.
it's not even non-conforming because there's nothing to non-conform
No.
to.
Right. Right. I don't know how that NA ever started, and I haven't really gone back, so I don't know if the board could shed some light on it, or if the board wants to change it. But I'm just throwing that out
I
there.
never thought about it, never.
Do we
never
not
had
allow
any-
new construction in that district?
Downtown, well, you haven't had.
I mean,
But you could.
if a building got such a shape that it was
I mean,
collapsing.
Onions
after-
bought that building next door. He could tear it down and put up another restaurant. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can potentially. I mean,
And
I don't
I
know if the
guess you
town
could
will
put
always
it
stay the same. I
right
just
up
don't
to
know
the
why it has
street.
NA.
There's
I don't
no
know if it
regulation.
means it's up to the board. I have no idea. If you guys know why it's like that.
Not authorized, maybe instead of
Not applicable. Yeah.
Well, not applicable, I'm sure it's what the NA means, but I don't know why.
Not applicable to
why
what?
It was never, why it was never addressed. It should have been, I would think.
I mean, I can't think of any new construction downtown in the last 25, 30 years.
I mean, there's only like 1 or 2 like
Well,
buildable lots, like empty
Saying I
lots
can't
that
find
They
it.
can tear down though and then build, like you said, or expand. There's no setbacks. Someone said, what's the setbacks? I said, well, let me look. Oh, we don't have any.
So they can build right up to their property.
I guess. I mean, if that, but do we want that in the future for new construction just because it's all existing? I just think that's odd. Again,
Should have
you're the
something.
planning board. So that's just another
1 foot.
oddity.
Okay.
I think that's enough for one night. And if the board has anything they want to add to the list, please, you can email me and I'll add it to the list for the next meeting. If you have something. I will, if I did not send this out to other boards like conservation and zoning, although zoning, when they mention in the meeting, I would make note of it. But since these were my ideas, I didn't want to send it out as planning board has purview over this proposal. So if you are okay with it, I will send it out to other board members for their input. If you want to wait till you guys have a chance to
I think
decide on,
Let us have a chance.
All right.
That's the
Perfect.
appropriate thing right now.
and back to the chair.
John, you have
I don't know if you also have online.
5 minutes.
And too.
Got it. So I just want to bring back up that we still have a mixed use district and what,
Do we have him speak in the microphone, please?
Yeah,
He's going to.
I'm going to put this up for.
I can help.
I would just like to make a note before John speaks that one thing I've noticed about Tilton is outside of downtown, there isn't really the concept of like a walkable, livable neighborhood. You're very much getting in a car and driving to get stuff. Like there are no corner stores. There are no, little cafes or bakeries or stuff, mixed into, where housing
You don't
is.
want it to like
And,
start.
Can you shut this one off?
Shut
where I
this-
grew up in
Use that one, and when
Keene,
you go over,
there's
just put it
All
on,
right.
okay?
convenience store at the end of my street and a school. So it's just, that's one thing that
Thank you.
I've noticed, that this type of zoning would address if people are looking for that lifestyle of, you can walk 5 minutes from your house and, get a coffee or go to a drugstore or something.
One thing we do need, has anybody here got a copy of the master plan?
Now we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, because that guides kind of what we decided, how we zone everything on it. So we need to keep in mind that when we look at these, that we refer to the master plan and why things are that way. And it's one of those things that, you can get it online, but it's, and take a look at it.
Was-
Everybody needs one because we need to, that's the other thing. After we get through the ordinance, we're going to have to look at the master plan and decide how we want to tackle it.
As well.
And that's also going to be coming up for, it's 10 years old, and we should be looking at
That's just what I said.
changing it. Yeah.
Okay. So again, I'm bringing up the issue of the mixed use district 2, which is designed to accommodate a variety of residential, retail, institutional, recreational, and services that are integrated with a planned village-like setting. And this also requires us to have city water and storage. So I bring your attention over to the 50 acres that we have here. And this is a concept plan that I have done. We're also trying to incorporate assisted living. So in total, we have 50 acres. We have about 6.5 acres of wetlands. I have 24 acres is set aside, and we would develop the last 20. And in doing so, we'd do it down in 3 different segments. This would be the assisted living. I actually went and visited assisted living, and I wasn't really familiar with it, but I know that the town fathers had approached me and said this is one of the things that we're interested in getting. And what I learned about is there's 3 different types of people in assisted living facilities. One is basically dementia. The other one have additional problems, but the truly assisted living one was the only one that was full. And those are basically small apartments type living with services within there like food, and different things that they can do like housekeeping and things like that. So I would suggest that we do one of these units with that, and the other 2 be workforce housing. These other few units down here would be like a village, would have a food store, a salon, and whatever else that we thought that may work in here. This would be down there for the rental center, and usually that they allow for a small theater type of viewing and a place for gathering, because in these smaller units, particularly in the assisted living ones, there should be a place for them to gather. So that's my concept here. This is kind of a unique opportunity because you have to have city water and storage, and you have to have a large piece of land to do it. So my hopes is that because we know about the workforce housing shortage, we know about assisted living shortage, that we would make this a mixed use 2 zone. By you doing that, you actually control it. Not everywhere they could do multifamilies, but in this section they could. And it's kind of a clever way how the town has passed this mixed use 2 and hasn't put land in it. But I propose that we put this in the mixed use land, put this in the mixed use 2 zoning. But I would like, we'd have to work on what the parameters are. Obviously, I just wouldn't want my land put in that. And then you say, yeah, you can do that. And you can put 2 houses here and 2 houses here and 2 houses there. That doesn't do anyone any good. So I understand we have to have parameters. I understand that we have to make something work for us, but I know there's a huge need for it. I did it in less than 3 minutes, so I'm just going to sit.
Thank you.
I'll sit down and see, the last time we talked, I got a feel for it. There was some interest in us moving this forward to the next stage. I would, if you decide, if the wisdom of the board is decide to move it forward, then we would put better plans in front of you and get a better concept going. This is just to start the conversation.
To give somebody reason there.
Well, I will get them on the planning board. I wanted to get the planning, I'll talk to the audience in a minute, but I'd like to get the feelings for the planning board.
I think it's a great thing, but I can't see that we would change one zone for one person's property. It seems improper because it's spot zoning. The original MU2 that they did, and they were going to create that, was another article that went with it, and they turned that down, so it made the mixed use 2 moot. And that was the thing. So, if are we going to have just your lot and the mixed use too, it doesn't seem really appropriate.
I'd like to speak to that because I was here and present when that went down.
And so was I, John.
What's
Yeah,
I?
I said so was I, so go on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, So that was actually one piece of property also. It was next to Quinn T. And that got shut down by 3 votes. And then they never brought it back. So, but the town did vote that they did want to have a mixed use 2 zone. And that was one piece of land and it was one person who controlled it. And when I looked up the definition of spot zoning, it says a small piece of property. I don't think we can consider 50 acres small. So I don't really think it falls under spot zoning. That's the legal definition of it. So.
And just, I did some research as well, and regarding spot zoning, and a mixed use 2 district is usually one really large parcel, because you wouldn't have like a whole street of mixed use necessarily. Usually it's one parcel that's being developed or a couple parcels that's being developed in a village type setting, depending how large the project is. And again, this is another thing that many towns, as you know, are looking to do, like, the Tuscan Village, Londonderry's got a couple, Laconia has one at the schools. So I wouldn't get scared off by the 50 acres on spot zoning, but that doesn't mean, I'm not trying to sway the board on that, but it's typically one. And I do, if you are interested, I have a few mixed use ordinances that other towns have done that sets the parameters and gives you kind of an
My
idea.
concern is that it's just you are the only one who's asking the planning board to write an article to change just your property to allow for your thing. It just doesn't look, if we had.
I understand it and I can appreciate
and
that.
That typically
Originally,
the
Kate,
method for,
it-
can I just finish
excuse
off?
me.
I was trying to finish something if I could, please. Originally, and I had stated before that typically when people do that, they go to ZBA to allow that's something that's not allowed. And that's usually, the method. I'm a little confused there on that.
No, I can
Yeah.
respect your opinion, and that's what I'm here to find out. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're upfront of
Yeah.
where you're coming from it. But I can be honest with you that it's a risk for me to take it, to put it into this mixed use zone too, because that's all I can do with it is what is allowed as a village type setting. So I don't think a lot of people would be very happy if you said, I'm going to make a broad sweeping change and I want, quarter of a mile of Route 3 to go into mixed use too. People would be saying, whoa, wait a minute. And again, I'm going to say that too unless I know exactly what we're going to be allowed to do in there. So I understand where you're going with that and I can appreciate it.
Can I just make one more point about that too, with going to zoning? I would just discourage this particular item to go to zoning, because if you went to zoning and they approved it, there's no parameters again. So now you still need to define the district. So to allow a mixed use, you still wouldn't be putting anything in the mixed use district. You just want them to allow them to build a mix of, but then they would,
But
so then
that
the
was
zone,
this
who's
whole
going to
district
define
that
what the
we're at.
density is?
Yeah.
The
Just
zoning
just
board?
one lot to be the mixed use district, right?
But the problem is the mixed use district doesn't have any density or any requirements. So we still need to either define the mixed use district as what we want it to be, with what are you going to allow there, how many you're going to allow, what the acreage is going to be allowed. Do they have to have a percentage of commercial? Most of these mixed use districts need a master plan, and it tells you 20% must be residential, 20% must be commercial, because you want that balance in this setting. So, I mean, zoning's not going to do that. The board isn't going to give you all that information. That's just
That's for the MU2 that you
correct.
talk about that.
Yep.
We don't have anything at all in it anyway, right?
We just have that little definition that it is designated to accommodate residential retail. It's just a one sentence on page 31, John. It just says, is designated to accommodate a variety of residential, retail, institutional, recreation, and service uses in an integral planned village-like setting where water and sewer is available. So, but how much of anything? Again, there's no.
So when this district was created, it was created to put a single property into it.
Correct.
And so the vote to create the district passed, the vote to put the property into it failed.
By 3 votes.
So, I mean, is each individual property required to be voted on separately? I mean, could we put something forward where it's this property and the property that was last time? And so then it's 2 properties that are potentially being voted on to be mixed use too. Although, can we just change the use of property without like asking the land, like does
There's
the
a
landowner
procedure,
come
yeah.
to us, or can we just say, hey, this agricultural land is now commercial?
And you don't
or
change it. You're just
industrial?
asking the voters if they want to. Just remember that. You're just
Right.
proposing that you send it to the voters.
There's nothing in the table of, is there?
31. No, it's not in the table.
So
It's
we'd have to
just here.
figure out,
You would.
so it would have to go
Yeah.
through, we'd have to figure out what things are allowed in that mixed use
Right.
too.
That's my
might
point.
Density,
have to
the
add
density
additional
is the big
definition.
question.
Yeah, the density is big. It does say what's allowed in this little definition, but it's very broad. I mean, this is just not a workable ordinance right
So
now.
I mean, if we were to want to move forward on this, then it would be, best case scenario, we get mixed use 2 defined, and that gets voted on and approved or not in the upcoming town meeting. And then it would be until the following town meeting that we could
Well, I mean, unless you wrote a
add
whole
property
article.
to it.
I mean, you could have write the whole article that,
You just put in
gives you a whole
the
mixed
proper
use.
order.
Yeah.
So not just the definition, we would have to add in the table
Oh, correct.
of what's allowed to it. So not just a definition. That's vague, but when you look at your allowed uses, you'd have to put in all of the allowed uses that,
All the tables and charts
all the
that
tables
exist in
in
the
which things in there,
document be
or if
updated.
we have to
Absolutely.
add in any additional uses within that. So that would be
It's
the
pretty
proper.
limited what I think I can use. I don't think I could change the uses. I think I would have to stay with what was approved. So I don't think you could start adding a different uses in it, but you'd have to add
They're all- I
dimensional
didn't
values.
go through it yet.
Yeah, okay. I don't think you could, but that's beyond me. I don't really know that.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, it's the voters would be voting on it. So I guess everything about mixed use 2 could be amended. It's just if we were to amend what was voted on and approved, then the other changes, the whole thing might get voted down potentially if people are like, oh, well, they added or removed this use that was approved in the last vote. That being said, if the town is voting on updating it, then I think we could potentially update all portions of it.
Okay, somebody in the audience?
because it doesn't,
That might be from the earlier question, because I don't think it
Oh.
ever went down.
it doesn't go down automatically.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. Oh, it is now.
Well,
Now
now
it
he's
is.
gone. Now he's gone, but now he's back. I don't know.
Any comment, Chuck?
I guess I would have a concern about traffic on that corner. I don't care any kind of residences put in there where there are a large number of people. It's bad enough on that corner as it is now with people pulling out and trying to take a left. I just can't imagine that if there's a large number of dwellings built in there. And we can't, I'm sure the state would not allow any more traffic lights or yellow lights or anything else. Right now, I would not support this, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Chuck. And I can, if you, it's probably difficult for you to see the plan, but we actually have the exit going down farther on another lot coming out. So you would turn in where we have that corner, which we have the 400 plus feet, which is required by the state. We already have a state permit for that, but the exit we have shown on the plan to actually go down about another 500 or 600 feet, so you'd have better site visibility. I leave that site every day and I take a left, and even though it's allowed, I'm not happy with it either. So I would agree with you, but hopefully I can get you to support this if we have better access to it.
Quick question, just as far as like traffic, vehicles, stuff like that. Say this doesn't get rezoned as mixed use, and you were to example, log it or mine it or do some other type of commercial activity that fits within the current zoning, that would also increase traffic, correct? I mean, any
Correct.
type of development is going to add some burden to the existing traffic.
Absolutely, no question. We have, I've done a traffic study, as you know. I had an approval for a convenience store, and I spent about $8,000 doing a traffic study right there. So I'm very familiar with what the state requires. And I've been to the state several times on this property, and we do have a commercial driveway permit for this now. And if you look at it, you can see the other access that we have there, a little red line that shows it going out. If we increase the usage over a certain point, they would like us to use that as an exit. The reason why we can't use that as an entrance is because it creates a traffic jam with Banville. So we've already taken all the traffic into consideration. I could point that out to you if you see what I'm.
What's Banville?
That relieves a lot of the danger. Difficulty is, as Chuck pointed out, is taking the left going up the hill. It's legal. It's over 400 feet. It was already done by a surveyor.
What is the other like business or property that you mentioned?
It's a house. It's a house I own.
Oh, I thought you said Bandville.
Manville is this road across.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought, got it.
So the reason why you can't have traffic coming in here is because if they stop and they're waiting for traffic, it blocks Manville. So they won't.
Oh, okay.
That's at the state level.
All right.
So right now, is that just like an
It's a driveway.
intersection? Like but as far as like the Manville Road, like is there stoplights there or stop signs, or is it just?
Down in there, there used to be
3M.
3M.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I got it.
Now you know where it is?
You got Valvoline there too. So.
Right.
Yeah.
The 3M sign is what.
So a lot of that, you'd have to deal with the state
Absolutely.
in that, because
Right.
so it's like the preserve and stuff that they even
I
changed
saw what
stuff
happened
there.
to them. I saw that.
Yeah.
They'd probably require us to do similar. Not as much. I mean, they have 200 employees going into the preserve. I mean, that's going to be quite a place. Yeah, it's not. This wouldn't have that kind of.
That wouldn't be the town's. That's your gamble.
Right. No, it is. And I've been to the state, and believe it or not, that after me spending that money for the convenience store and getting educated on it, convenience stores are the highest density of traffic. Housing are very, very low. People usually leave once and come back once. You know, it's not like it's a.
Yeah, they leave in the morning, they come back at night.
That's right. They're workforce housing. They're working.
And then run out to the convenience store.
Right,
Then
exactly.
they get home and go, oh, I forgot the gallon of milk.
All right,
Oh,
any
wait,
other
that's just
questions
me.
from the planning board?
I would like to know, just for my, I don't know how to say it. Here you're taking 50 acres, you're leaving 40 to 50% open space.
Yeah, more, but yes, 60.
Obviously, with the way it's currently zoned, what's the most, the only word I can think of is invasive, so.
What could I do in there to really go crazy is what you're
Well,
saying?
what's the worst?
I could put 48 houses in there and it would fall under what they call the cluster zoning that you have.
So
So
it would be cluster. But okay, let's say you say, you know what? I'm going to build because I want to maximize my profit on this property. I'm
Right.
not going to leave half of that space. You
You-
could put 50. Well, you could probably put 100 houses in there.
No, you can't because when you do the cluster, there's requirements. And so I'm taking all those requirements into account to
Yeah.
saying that's the units that I could get out of there. But again, this is how it's going to work out. If we go and we say, yeah, we don't really want this, we don't want apartments, we don't want assisted living in this place, we don't want to put, that's too much of a burden on our schools and blah, blah, yada, yada.
Assisted living's not going to be a burden on schools, but
I know, I know the statistics and I've been educating myself on them. And the average person age on this thing that lives in these apartments is 22 to 35. When they normally go and start having kids and raise a family, they normally move out to single family houses in most cases. In this income bracket that is required for those. And assisted living, we all know about that. So I don't know where I was going with it. So I've getting old.
I guess
Impact on schools, you're saying.
So the impact on schools is not going to be a big burden, and the impact on, I don't know, but that's a good one. Help me out there, but I don't know where I was going.
our services would be impacted. But
They
anything that
would
goes,
be.
and almost anything that goes in there is going to be impact our services.
Right, and we
but
could put, the zoning is pretty liberal under the resort commercial. I mean, you could put another massive hotel in there if we need one. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
So like, could you cover like 80% of that acreage with warehousing?
You could in different, right,
Like,
different
just do a
ones
bunch of
required.
square foot warehouses for,
Yeah.
Storage.
various
Yeah, you could do,
distributors or what have
if
you.
I came in here and said, look, I think we need more self-storage. You could go crazy on this property. As long as I think it's, what is the coverage in that one, 60%?
Yeah, 60%. Is that mixed use there or is that commercial?
That's resort
Or
commercial,
commercial?
Yeah, so
which is
that's-
very liberal. It's a good zone. I mean, I'm not really complaining. I just,
Yeah, you
Trying-
can do a lot in that zone actually, but
Yeah, it might be like
So
60%.
just a point of
permeable.
order, we're trying to work on how we're going to change a mixed use zone.
right.
And it seems more like you're presenting your plans. But what we need to do is find out how we would do it and what that would look like for that.
Right. I'm with
So,
you,
you know,
John.
what the table of uses would be, because we're going to have to know, because that would have to be filled out, which would include whatever that is. So if we stick to, you know, the subject that we're working on, you know, and
I would just
and how we would change MU2.
I would just speak
fit that.
quickly to that one, and
Yeah.
I don't think we can change MU2. It's got to be, it's residential, retail, recreational. Those are the things that you can do, but the density is what we would have to figure
What
out.
I'm looking at is, okay, so we would have to establish if you have MU2, you would have to have the chart of permitted uses. Are
Right.
you going to allow accessory dwelling,
I understand what you're saying.
adult stores?
Of course we are.
You know,
I
those
understand.
type
No,
of
I
things.
agree.
So, you know, to go forward, we'd have to see what mixed use would look like. So we can make any changes or recommendations for changes.
Yeah, and then, I mean, given the deadlines that we have, the zoning amendments that have been proposed, stuff like tiny houses that will probably require us to update all sections to a certain degree,
got a lot of work.
updating the master plan, it may not make it into this town meeting cycle, even
Well,
if
which one? Well, we don't know which ones will.
updating the mixed use, like
We don't know.
fully defining mixed use 2 district might not be possible with the amount of work that we have that is in front of us.
So one of the things, if we allow mixed use 2, And then I don't know what the requirements are for changing permitted uses, because that could also be on the same warrant for the vote.
Right. And another way you could do it, just putting it out there, is you can put a table within, have its own table, have the mixed use 2 district have a table within that ordinance, which some of the towns do it that way. Kind of like in solar, there's a table of the districts, which we're going to correct, of what you can do. You can make a table of dimensional values and a table of allowed uses within a mixed use district, if you wanted.
Or
I mean,
have
you
it
don't
that
have
it-
to.
That it, and it would also change MU2 to include, or the chart of permitted uses, Appendix B, to include MU2 with all those in there.
Right.
do
It
it
doesn't
that way.
always, it
That's
doesn't
fine.
always correlate to that permitted uses, because it's kind of the way most towns approach it. It's a unit within itself, and it'll have its own master plan. So most of the time you require a master plan to develop a property in mixed use 2, and it has to be defined in their master plan as well. So it's usually, the ordinance is usually all inclusive of everything and separate from the other, because you're not going to have all these different uses. It has to be kind of configured as a unit, because you want a balance of so many, because you can't just say, well, it'll allow um, uh, elderly housing. It's all tied to a percentage. So usually you do a chart within the mixed use 2 district that says, these are the percentage you have to do, these are what's allowed use, and they have to be, you can't just do, usually you don't allow them just to do all assisted living in a mixed use 2 district. It's usually a balance to make a village district is the point, or you don't want just all commercial or all single family. It's a balance. So it usually has its own chart is what I'm saying. And I'm not the expert on developing this ordinance, but I've been in towns that have had mixed use districts and they've worked, and that's usually how the
We
ordinance
do
is.
have a mixed use, but we're making it separate mixed use.
Well, this is a different type of mixed use, and I almost shouldn't even use the word mixed use. They go mixed use
MU2.
1 and 2, because this is really more of a village district use cluster. But for whatever reason, throughout the state and everywhere, they call them mixed use districts that are village districts. So there is some confusion with the verbiage, but again, that's what I know of it.
The only,
What towns have those, do you know?
Mostly all towns have a mixed use
No, but
2
have, okay.
that is more of a village setting that have established. Like I said, Londonderry has it, Derry has it, Laconia has it, Hooksett has it. I'd have to look for towns that don't have it. Many of the smaller towns that don't have a lot of commercial and developments like this, or traffic, certainly aren't going to do a village type setting, but more a lot of southern New Hampshire, Salem, have them. Concord's looking at doing this type of thing right on Loudon Road, of making a village area. So,
the old Steeplegate Mall, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
The Steeplegate Mall.
Yeah.
Steeplegate Mall, right? So this is just the
Article
new,
in the paper about that one.
yeah, it's just a new approach, and Tilton may want to do this and they may not, but
Right.
that's really how
It's an
usually done.
opportunity to address the housing shortage. And there's not that many large tracts of land with city water and storage. But I understand if this isn't the direction that you think we should go in, that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to say, do we need this? Do you want, again, I give the same example before, but do you want people to be able to have a place to go for workforce housing?
Okay, all right, thank you, John.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, last order of business are the minutes.
I have one last thing, if you'll allow me, Jane. The other thing we don't have in the ordinance, and I know there's no way we're going to get this all written for March, but if you could think about it for maybe next year, or we have no elderly housing ordinance, we have no assisted living ordinance, have no high density ordinance, and we have no workforce housing ordinance. And with the big push in the state for housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, we don't have any definitions and a good working ordinance for any of those. And again, if you take the time, if you are at home and want to look at other towns, most towns do provide those ordinances, and you can read through them and see if that's something you want to provide here. We don't really have a lot of information on ordinance about those type of housing. So that's all I have.
Well, it's definitely a hot topic, and it's an area that Lakes Region Planning might be able to give us some.
I spoke to Lake Regional Planning. They didn't really have anyone available to help us out right now. They're shorthanded. So
But that's a source in the future. Hopefully they won't be.
Meeting or something, they voted on something?
Yeah, but that's commission. That's not,
I'm not sure I understand the difference.
yeah, and I have stuff that I said I'd send you, and I will. I haven't forgotten. Okay? That's on workforce housing
Right.
and the state's approach to it. And it's a hot topic with the state right now.
Well, I believe we're currently 60,000 units short, and they need to build 90 by 2030 or 2035.
Just a point of information. The town of Londonderry is going to build enough apartments and housing that they're going to have their own exit off of Route 93. They're building it now. They're building the exit. All of those apple orchards have been sold and leveled, and they're going to go into apartment buildings. This workforce, their housing shortage is being addressed. In Concord, they're going to build 900 units of apartments along the Merrimack River off of Manchester Street. A friend of mine leased a piece of property there, and the property was sold. There is also the southern New Hampshire, when you're talking about Salem. Salem is a city, and Dover is a city, and Portsmouth is a city.
Franklin is a city.
And Franklin is a city of 5,000 people. It's not a city of 20,000 or 30,000. Franklin has the nursing home that's going up. It's being added onto, which is going to be wonderful. Their mill buildings are being converted to apartments. This is being addressed. It's just an information I want to send out there to you. They're also building a veterans housing project, and they include small apartment buildings in Franklin, off of where the Daniel Webster Farm was. And they started. I think they turned the shovels over in September. And I realize this because my son is a disabled veteran. So I think that one of the things that concerns me deeply is that there's 17,000 automobiles go through this town every day. And with the up and coming project that's down there on the lake, that's going to be another 200. And with all of these projects going on, we're going to have a giant traffic jam. Now, if there's a call for an emergency service and the EMTs have to take Loudon Road and there's an accident on Loudon Road, there is no alternative. There is no alternative to Loudon Road. There's no other way around it. It's just an amazing thing that we see this, we see the development going on, and I'm not against it. I'm just saying to use caution here, because we can get into a point of saturation where we can't afford to keep the EMTs and the policemen going. I don't know who's going to pay for it all. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to respond to you quickly. I was talking to the people at the Veterans Home. They have more beds than they can fill, and the reason why they can't fill those beds is not because they don't have people that can go in and qualify for it. They don't have anybody to work it. That's why those beds aren't full at the Veterans Home.
Well, are you going to have people to work your project? I mean, if there's a labor shortage everywhere, why don't you have a labor shortage?
Well, I
That's another
would.
Another issue.
So- I think one of the key things that we need to look at, and I don't think this involves the MR2, but when we're doing our changes in our ordinances, we have to read the master plan and sit down and actually read through it.
Yes.
This is what we adopted to do a vision going forward and all that. It goes into explaining the issues with the rapid economic growth and all that in town, the traffic, recreational facilities for people, keeping open spaces, and just preserving the character of our town. So that's, we want, and it's not pertaining to this, but all of our ordinances and the spirit of everything that we do, we have to look at that master plan. So if we all take, a couple days and just read through it and understand it. And also, if you have one, you can mark it up for things that you think we should change, because that's our purview of the planning board, is to adopt this master plan and to change it as necessary.
So
That's the planning board's
I think it needs to
document.
be updated because it's 10 years old.
Yeah.
so.
Now, is this master plan voted on by the legislature?
Yes.
Thank you.
so I guess, do we need to have a new version of the master plan ready by this upcoming
No,
town meeting?
We can't.
No, there's no way we can thoughtfully do that.
Okay, so
But we have
the
to, we should be
existing
looking.
zoning amendments, we should do them against the existing master plan.
Correct.
With that in mind, yeah.
And
Correct.
Master plan's usually done by an entire town. Usually you can get a charrette, or you get groups, you get workshops, you have a lot of public hearings because you want to know what the townspeople, I mean,
And that's
you're
why I
not
said
going to
that.
have 5 people decide the direction of the whole town. So you usually get workshops, charrettes, and you get all the public to come out, and you get surveys, usually do surveys of what they're looking for the town, and basically get all that. It's a long process to rewrite the master plan. And then once you have all that input from your public of what direction they want to see the town to go in and what's important to them, maybe it's recreation, or maybe it's housing, or maybe it's, then you take that and you write a master plan with that.
Northfield's in the process of going
Yeah,
over
it's
it
it's
now.
a it's a
They-
and sometimes you contract it out as well. You can bring in a company that can help you maneuver through those surveys and all that. But the master plan's a big process. That's why it's always done every 10 years, and many towns 15 years old. We're not unique to having
We
no
should
master
look at
plan.
next year going
Yeah.
into that, but this was a guidance that was put together,
You're
as
right.
Leanne
Yep.
said, by, if you look, you can
27
see,
people.
you can see, how many?
27.
27 people, including Eric signed it. Put together this master plan based on all of that information. And so when we look at our, and say what we think that the town should be in having all these things, we have to realize that 27 people, committees, and hearings put together this master plan saying what they, the legislative body, wanted the town to be. So we need to make sure we keep that in mind. It doesn't, there's, I think there's some stuff that addresses housing for elderly and allowing people to stay in their homes and preserving that.
Okay.
So,
Well,
and it's just something to keep in mind while we're looking through all these ordinances.
So Jane, can you clarify the charge of this board going forward? So the next meeting, we're not just reviewing these again. Are we gonna,
no.
I want to move
Point it.
forward. So come up with a priority list. Are we gonna do?
Up with the priority list and work on, I'd say how many do you think we can get done
I don't know, how many do you think you can get done? I don't know.
realistically? How many can we get done?
I would suggest the first thing is prioritize. So at least if you prioritize, and for example, I know this isn't the way it's going to be. We'll say, for example, you decide that tiny homes or Airbnbs are the top priority. Example. Then you're not going to be doing 12 ordinances because you're going to spend the lion's share on this big ordinance. If you come up with
Oh, I don't think.
6 of the smaller ones, and it depends how you prioritize what's important to the town and what you want to address first. And then we'll see, how much time we think, maybe put a time frame next to, and which ones we can get done. And maybe there's some will get crossed off. I think if everyone independently came up with what they thought
I was going to say
the
if we all
top
come up
6,
with our I was going to say top
top
5.
5, and then and maybe 5 that you don't want to do, or is there anything and then we go from there and come up with a consensus. I mean, I don't know how you want to approach this.
So some of these are simple, correcting stuff.
Yeah, like
So
the
we'll
first
definitely hit those.
The
How many?
solar
There's
one.
4 of those, right?
Solar is going to be quick because we'll just.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say like even number 4, we can just look at, the homeowner insurance guidelines, as far as what they allow for, farm animals, and disallow. Because, if insurance isn't going to let someone have more than, 8 chickens on a single family
Well, we
property.
don't have anything for chickens at all. I think that's the issue on that
Right,
one.
right. But so we could just,
Yeah.
okay, this is what
Well,
homeowners
let's each
insurance
of
will
us
let
come
people
up with
allow.
our top 5, okay? And a list of those that we think we don't have to deal with, and it'll take us a
Let's
few
get
minutes
through
to
quick.
deal with them. Because we don't want to hit the voters with so many changes
Right.
that they have to sit for 2 hours.
And also, if you have any
He's going the
different
ballot,
ones, bring them
It's going
forward.
on the ballot.
Yeah, that's what it goes
Oh.
on the ballot, but they'll have to sit
It's got to
and
fit in the back
read
of the
through it.
ballot.
Mhm.
Oh,
Gotta
you mean
fit on
when
the
they're
back.
in the voting booth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what.
Scroll.
Yeah, and
Can I,
again, and if you have others that I didn't list on here that I didn't think of, certainly you're the towns, you can bring anything new forward.
Okay.
can I possibly make a comment here?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I brought up to the select board a number of months ago, was an ordinance that would require anyone who is renting apartments down on the main street and require them to be able to provide their tenants with parking spaces. As opposed to right now, the town has been going crazy trying to find parking spaces supported by public dollars for overnight parking for residents in apartments. That should not be the case. And I think that that really needs to be addressed. That will take care of, as John was saying earlier, the parking downtown is a huge problem. Every single person who is leasing or renting apartments on the main street should be able to make a deal with those people who own parking areas downtown, if they have to lease those and then include the cost of those parking spaces in the rent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a parking lot for the hotel?
Oh yeah.
No.
The hotel?
Oh.
Yeah, the,
He bought he bought the old doctor's office, and that's all parking over there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where like all of the
He also
Yes.
has, I think the
across the
board
street.
has given them some spaces right on Main Street as well, right?
I think 4 spaces right on Main Street.
Does he own the building across the street still?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Staff might.
Parking behind it.
and it's pretty
Parking
Tough.
behind it's a town lot, right?
behind what?
No, down on the river.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Oh, it's park for what?
It's behind the building. He owns the building across the street.
No, I know, but I don't
But
think
behind the building is, he said he wanted to put, that's where his overflow was going to go.
Oh, because I thought that's why he bought the doctor's office
Hmm.
for his overflow.
Well, he changed, since then he's changed his mind.
All right. Next order of business. Minutes. Do you have an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yep.
Any corrections, comments? I didn't see anything.
No. I'll make a motion to approve the
I'll second it.
minutes of October 24th, 2023.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same.
I haven't been up since 4 in the morning.
Anything else to bring before the board?
Schedule, how do we want to do this? Just at the regular meetings and set a time aside to our next meeting? And is there anything around Thanksgiving or something that, or we don't have to
ZBA.
change any of our meetings?
So the next, your next scheduled meeting is November 20, I keep saying the wrong date, 26th, 28th? What's the next,
28th.
26th?
2 weeks from today.
You have a calendar, it's 26th?
28th.
28th, thank you, Eric, 28th. Next schedule is 28th, and we have one application coming before you, and coincidentally, it's Mr. Bernard. Again, not regarding this.
And then we'll also have
Ooh, a
the
surprise.
follow-up for the application from today.
Right, and I do have more change of uses coming, so I have quite a few change of use, because now that all those change of uses are requiring, you're going to see all those change of uses at every meeting. So you'll have more of those. You've got some downtown businesses that are looking to change occupancy. So you're going to have some change of uses. You're going to have this other change use for Sumatra. You've got Mr. Bernard. And then we'll have our workshop on this, unless you want to schedule, and I think that maybe what you were alluding to, John, you want to have a separate meeting at a different time. I mean, next week's probably not good because Thanksgiving is
Well, it's
next
also
week.
zoning ZBA meeting.
And we have a ZBA meeting next Tuesday. So maybe December we make more, a zoning board does not meet in December, so our Tuesdays are free. The planning board only meets one Tuesday in December because of the holiday, so that frees up. So you have 3 Tuesdays in December to use if you want to.
Let's see how far we get next time, okay? And make a decision then. We might maybe meet every week until we
So-
get this under control.
Right, and you may, I mean, you could do it, you don't have to be in a meeting to do some writing. Maybe do some writing at home and bring it we break it up. Everyone takes an amendment and takes a stab at it. I mean, I don't know. See how you want to do it.
I am assuming that as far as any changes, we have to show what the original text was and then what the new text is to the voters as far as
Yeah,
approval.
as far as putting it in the actual verbiage that will go before the voters, I can help with that because that has to be, there's a certain way you have to propose the change. If we can just get written what you
What we
want, the new one,
Accomplish.
I can get it put into the correct verbiage with old and new, and then usually you give an explanation for the voter because they won't understand why you're doing it
What we do.
to go on the ballot. That I can do. If you guys just focus on what you want it to say.
And that's up towards February and March. No, January and February when
Right.
we do that. February,
Now, the
March.
last time we had an extensive number of ordinances, we had somebody sit on election day at the table to offer guidance to people if they didn't understand it.
You mean one of the
my
board
friend-
members?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember that?
That's a Saturday, right? It's always a Saturday.
Town meeting? I guess.
Oh, he sat there, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Because
Okay.
we had so many of them.
He had a little, didn't he have like a, because you can't hand out anything.
Yeah, I think we had a definitions and history of stuff available.
Dari sat at the table and answered any questions they had.
Remember something like
I don't
that.
know. Yeah, but you have to be careful because otherwise you get into electioneering and all that.
Yeah.
Well, so I
Maybe
know
he
at the-
sat out in the lobby.
Well, it was in the lobby, definitely, yeah.
No, he sat at the table in the.
I don't think he can.
Yeah, nobody can talk to anybody inside that door except for,
Wow. Pre-COVID,
All right.
everything.
but he was right out that, I remember that whole table.
Yeah, because you have to be a certain number of feet from the entrances to hold signs and stuff.
If you're campaigning, you do 200 feet. You can't wear anything.
But
I'll
won't
make
you
a motion
be-
to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, you have to stay.
No, I'm going to onions.
No, you can't sell anything fully closed.
Starving.
Okay, because I know for the school district meeting in the gym, they had a bunch of like materials and explanation, but like,
That's district meeting, that's different than,
so district meetings, town meetings, different
different.
requirements, because districts and towns are different.
Yeah, the town
Yeah.
meetings sell food.
Town meeting, you can do anything like
Anybody
that,
could go, I'll call it, go on hallway,
not elections.
stuff or whatever. Everything's going on public.
Wait,
You've never been at a town meeting with a